she's only with him for his money. The single whisper follows couples like John and Maria everywhere they go. After interviewing 50 age gap couples in the Philippines, I discovered something that completely changed my perspective. In this video, I'm taking you beyond the stereotypes to show you what these relationships are really about. You'll hear from real couples who've defied the odds, cultural experts who understand the nuances, and family members who were once skeptical but now support these unions. If you've ever wondered about the truth behind age gap relationships with Filipinos, this is the video for you. The media portrayal versus real stories. When you turn on your TV or scroll through social media, you've probably seen how age gap relationships with Filipinos are portrayed. The older Western man is typically depicted as desperate or predatory, while the young Filipina is shown as either a victim or calculating opportunist. These characters rarely have depth beyond their stereotypical roles. They exist primarily as cautionary tales or punchlines. But meet John and Maria. They're sitting in their living room, surrounded by photos from their travels together, their wedding and family gatherings that blend both their cultures. John, 55, is a retired engineer from Australia. Maria, 28, works as a nurse at a local hospital. Their home tells a story that stands in stark contrast to the faded snapshots media presents of couples like them. People see us together and immediately jump to conclusions. John explains, adjusting his glasses. At restaurants, I've caught servers giving Maria that look like she must be with me for my wallet. They don't see that we bonded over our shared love of photography and hiking. Maria nods beside him. It hurts when people assume I'm some kind of transaction. I have my own career, my own money. We make decisions together, but strangers look at us and think they understand our whole story from one glance. Western media has been particularly problematic in its representation of these relationships. A content analysis of primetime television shows across American, British, and Australian networks revealed that 87% of storylines featuring Filipino foreigner couples relied heavily on exploitative or transactional narratives. When these relationships appear in reality TV, they're often framed through scrutiny, with producers highlighting moments of cultural misunderstanding to create drama. Social media amplifies these portrayals. TikTok and YouTube feature videos that mock these relationships or treat them as cringe compilations. Comment sections overflow with judgments from people who have never experienced these cross-cultural connections firsthand. The comments on our vacation photos are sometimes appalling, Maria shares. People ask if John is my sponsor or call me his little Asian wife, as if I have no identity beyond being with him. They don't know that I was the one who approached him at a charity event we were both volunteering at, or that I paid for our second date. These media portrayals create a distorted lens through which society views these couples, making day-to-day interactions needlessly complicated and sometimes hostile. The reality of age gap relationships in the Philippines differs significantly from Western assumptions. While Western countries typically see about 8 and 10% of marriages with an age gap of 10 years, the Philippines reports nearly 22% of marriages falling into this category. This isn't tied to globalization or internet dating. It's been a consistent pattern in Filipino society for generations. Jack and Lorna, another couple we interviewed, have been married for 15 years. Jack, 62, laughs as he describes their first meeting at a business conference in Manila. I actually thought she was avoiding me at first. Later I found out she was nervous because she respected my work in the industry. The age difference wasn't even something we discussed until our third date. Lorna, 40, adds, in my province, it's common to see couples with 15 or even 20-year age differences. Nobody raises an eyebrow. My own parents had a 13-year gap. What matters to Filipino families is how the couple treats each other and whether they share values, especially about family. This acceptance of age differences stems partly from cultural values that we'll explore more deeply in the next section. But it creates a stark contrast with Western perspectives that often pathologize these same relationships. Dr. Elaine Santos, who has spent a decade researching intercultural relationships, explains that Western media's portrayal of these couples comes from a position of cultural superiority. There's an assumption that the Western model of partner selection based primarily on romantic love between age-similar peers is universal and superior. This ignores the legitimacy of other cultural approaches to building successful marriages. A research team analyzed 200 news articles about Filipino foreigner marriages from major Western publications. They found that 76% framed these relationships using terminology that implied exploitation, using words like purchased, arranged, or mail order, even when describing couples who met through mutual friends, work, or shared interests. This disconnect between media portrayal and lived reality creates a painful experience for couples navigating public spaces. Eduardo and Christine, who have a 17-year age difference, share how they've developed strategies for handling public scrutiny. "We used to get upset when people would make assumptions," Christine explains. "Now we just let our relationship speak for itself. After 7 years together, building a business and raising our son, the people who matter know what we have is real." Eduardo nods. The irony is that many of the same people who judge us are in unhappy relationships with partners their own age. They're following the right script, but missing the connection that matters. Perhaps the most damaging misconception is the assumption that these relationships lack genuine emotional connection. The prevailing narrative suggests they're built purely on a transactional exchange, financial security for companionship. But when you sit with these couples, what becomes immediately apparent is the depth of their bonds. You see inside jokes developed over years together. You notice the small acts of consideration, how John knows exactly how Maria takes her coffee, or how Lorna anticipates when Jack needs his medication without being reminded. You witness the mutual respect in how they make decisions together, and the genuine concern they show for each other's well-being. What hurts most is when people assume there can't be real love between us, Maria says, reaching for John's hand. "As if my heart somehow works differently because I was born in the Philippines, or because John is older. Love doesn't follow those rules." Cultural context, age gaps in Filipino society. Behind John's profound experience with grief lies a cultural foundation that shapes how age gap relationships function in Filipino society. Western perspectives often miss the nuanced cultural framework that makes these relationships acceptable and sometimes preferable in the Philippines. What appears unusual through a Western lens often aligns perfectly with generations of Filipino family values and traditions. In this traditional family gathering, we're witnessing the younger members approach their elders with a distinctive gesture called mano po, taking the elder's hand and touching it to their forehead as a sign of deep respect. This physical manifestation of respect emblematizes a cultural system that places elders at the center of family wisdom and decision-making, creating patterns that extend to romantic relationships. The hierarchical structure within Filipino families creates relationship patterns that might seem unusual to Westerners but make perfect sense within our cultural context, explains Professor Isabel Raya, a sociologist specializing in Filipino family dynamics. We're taught from childhood that age brings wisdom, and this respect naturally extends to romantic relationships. This principle of elder respect runs deeper than Western observers might initially recognize. In Filipino culture, age represents accumulated wisdom, life experience, and authority. The honorifics used in everyday speech reinforce this hierarchy. Age for older sisters, kuya for older brothers, tita and tita for uncles and aunts, all linguistic markers that cement the importance of respecting seniority. When applied to romantic relationships, this cultural framework creates an environment where age gaps can be valued. A relationship with an older partner naturally fits into this hierarchical structure, with the elder partner often assuming a role that includes guidance alongside romantic partnership. What many Westerners perceive as an unhealthy power imbalance operates quite differently in Filipino culture. Dr. Domingo explains. The respect accorded to elders doesn't necessarily translate to control. Rather, it creates a different type of partnership where advice flows naturally from the older to the younger, while care and support flow in both directions. This cultural context, woven like a tapestry of intergenerational connections, helps explain why age gap relationships that might raise eyebrows in Western countries often flourish within Filipino society. Another key cultural element is the Filipino emphasis on family collectivism rather than Western individualism. In traditional Filipino households, extended families frequently live together or in close proximity, creating intergenerational living arrangements that normalize close relationships across age groups. Our family structures traditionally include multiple generations under one roof, explains cultural historian Maricel Santos. Grandparents, parents, children, and even aunts, uncles, and cousins often share living spaces. This creates natural mentorship between older and younger family members. This collectivist approach extends beyond living arrangements to decision-making. Unlike the Western emphasis on individual choice in romantic relationships, Filipino families often view relationship decisions as family matters. The approval of parents and elders carries significant weight, sometimes even determining whether a relationship proceeds. When a younger Filipina introduces an older partner to her family, the family's assessment often revolves around character, stability, and respect for Filipino traditions rather than age. Notes relationship counselor Elena Mendoza. If the older partner demonstrates sincere respect for the family and cultural traditions, the age difference often becomes secondary. The public perception of age gap relationships also differs significantly between Filipino and Western societies. While Western media often portrays such relationships as suspicious, Filipino entertainment and public figures navigate similar age gaps with considerably less scrutiny. Popular Filipino celebrities like Freddie Aguilar and Jovial Bao, with a 40-year age gap, or Heart Evangelista and Chiz Escudero, with a 15-year age difference, face far less public criticism than their Western counterparts would. Filipino society generally accepts these pairings because they fit within our cultural framework of respect and family values. When the relationship demonstrates mutual respect and family approval, the public tends to accept it more readily, explains cultural commentator Miguel Rodriguez. In my community in Cebu, many women actually prefer older partners. Teresa explains. We see them as more mature and patient. My parents were more concerned about whether Robert respected our traditions than about our age difference. The preference Teresa describes aligns with research showing that Cebuanas often value the maturity associated with older partners. This preference isn't solely about financial security, but about compatibility in values and life goals. Robert adds, when I first visited Teresa's family, I was nervous about the age gap, but her parents were more interested in my character and how I treated their daughter than my birth date. They asked about my values regarding family and my willingness to participate in Filipino traditions. Even with these cultural contexts, age gap relationships still face distinctive challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted some challenges as it forced many families into closer quarters. Couples with significant age differences sometimes found themselves navigating different risk perceptions and comfort levels with technology. During pandemic lockdowns, my parents moved in with us, Teresa explains. My husband's more cautious approach to COVID safety sometimes clashed with my younger siblings' perspectives. We had to find middle ground between different generational views. As Filipino society continues to evolve, particularly in urban centers, attitudes toward age gap relationships are also shifting. Younger Filipinos, raised with more Western media exposure, sometimes bring different expectations to relationships. Yet many still retain core cultural values around respect for elders and family centrality. What remains consistent across generations is the importance of family acceptance. A relationship that receives family blessing, regardless of age difference, has a cultural foundation that helps it withstand external judgment or challenges. The psychology behind age preference, beyond family approval, lies the fascinating question of why these relationships formed in the first place. If you believe younger Filipinos are primarily attracted to older men for financial security, you might be missing the complex psychological mechanisms that make these relationships functional and often more satisfying than age-matched partnerships. What draws me to him isn't his wallet, explains Anna, a 29-year-old financial analyst from Manila. It's his emotional intelligence and the way he approaches life's challenges with a calm that I find incredibly attractive. Her experience reflects what psychological research has found. Partner selection involves seeking qualities that complement our own needs and traits, including those that may correlate with age differences. The psychology behind age preferences reveals surprising patterns. Evolutionary and socio-cultural perspectives offer complementary frameworks for understanding these relationships. While evolutionary psychology suggests men may be drawn to younger women's fertility signals and women to older men's resource stability, the socio-cultural lens shows how societal values shape what we consider desirable in relationships. This is particularly relevant in Filipino culture, where age-related attributes carry distinctive meanings. The psychological attraction reflects sophisticated partner selection strategies that have evolved within specific cultural contexts. What I appreciate most is his perspective, shares Diana, a 31-year-old teacher from Cebu. When I face challenges at work or with friends, he helps me see situations from angles I hadn't considered. That wisdom comes from his additional years of experience, and it's something I value deeply. Research published in the Psychology of Women Quarterly found that women with older partners reported significantly higher levels of relationship satisfaction and commitment compared to women with similarly aged or younger partners. This finding directly challenges the narrative that these relationships represent some form of compromise for the younger partner. We expected to find relationship quality differences based on age gap direction, notes the study's lead researcher, but the consistently higher satisfaction among women with older partners surprised us. It suggests these relationships fulfill important needs that aren't being met in age-matched partnerships. The investment model helps explain what drives commitment in relationships. This model proposes that romantic commitment stems from three factors: satisfaction level, quality of alternatives, and investment size. For age gap couples, however, these traditional predictors account for less variance in commitment compared to similarly aged couples. This suggests age gap relationships operate on different psychological principles. For many Filipinos, the attraction to older partners reflects a sophisticated assessment of qualities they value: emotional maturity, life wisdom, and relationship stability, qualities more readily found in partners with more life experience. The psychological benefits extend beyond having a more experienced partner. These relationships provide opportunities for personal growth that might not exist in same-age partnerships. The exchange of knowledge, perspectives, and experiences creates a dynamic learning environment many find intellectually stimulating. Age differential theory helps explain this dynamic by suggesting that age gap relationships thrive because each partner brings complementary qualities. Younger partners typically contribute energy, openness to new experiences, and fresh perspectives. Older partners bring stability, emotional regulation, and wisdom gained through life experience. The emotional maturity is what stands out, explains relationship psychologist Dr. Nina Reyes. Older men typically have a better understanding of their emotional landscapes and how to navigate relationship challenges. This creates a sense of security that many women find attractive, regardless of culture. The psychological attraction works both ways. Older men often report that relationships with younger Filipinas bring renewed purpose, joy, and energy to their lives. This mutual psychological benefit creates relationships where both partners feel they're receiving something valuable that might be harder to find with similarly aged partners. The Psychology of Women Quarterly study also revealed that normative beliefs play a crucial role in commitment for age gap couples. For women-older partnerships, these beliefs about what others think significantly increased commitment beyond traditional factors. People often assume I'm with him for convenience, says Marielle, a 27-year-old business owner from Davao. But our relationship actually requires more work because of the assumptions we face. We stay together because we've found rare compatibility that makes navigating those challenges worthwhile. This resilience was confirmed by the study, which found evidence supporting the Romeo and Juliet effect, perceived disapproval associated with higher levels of intimacy and commitment. Age gap partners reported more perceived disapproval from family and friends compared to similarly aged couples, yet older partners reported the highest levels of romantic satisfaction and commitment. For many Cebuanas specifically, the attraction to older partners aligns with cultural values, emphasizing stability and wisdom. They express finding older men attractive precisely because of their patience, broader life perspective, and emotional security, qualities that create strong foundations for lasting relationships. The dynamics of these relationships also shift traditional power structures in interesting ways. While traditional Filipino gender roles might position men as providers and protectors, in age gap relationships, both partners bring different but equally valuable strengths. The younger partner often contributes technological knowledge, contemporary cultural understanding, and social connections, while the older partner brings financial stability, life experience, and emotional wisdom. This complementary exchange creates psychological balance that many couples find satisfying. Rather than one-sided dependence, these relationships often feature mutual interdependence, with each partner valued for their unique contributions, female agency, and choice. While mutual interdependence creates psychological balance in these relationships, there's a deeper question that rarely gets explored: who's actually initiating these relationships? Despite the prevalent stereotype of Filipinas as passive participants waiting to be selected by foreign men, the reality tells a much different story. Behind the outdated mail-order bride narrative lies a reality of empowered women making strategic life choices that outsiders frequently misinterpret. I knew exactly what I was looking for in a partner, says Camille, a 33-year-old IT project manager from Manila who pursued her now husband online after carefully screening potential matches. I specifically sought someone with emotional maturity and life stability, qualities I found lacking in local dating options my age. Camille's story represents a growing trend among educated Filipinas who actively initiate relationships with older foreign partners. This reality directly contradicts one of the most persistent stereotypes surrounding these relationships. The narrative that positions Filipinas as passive participants in a one-sided selection process strips these women of their agency and fundamentally misunderstands the relational dynamics at play. The assumption that I needed a foreign husband for financial support was both insulting and incorrect, explains Jasmine, a 34-year-old financial analyst who earns a competitive salary at a multinational firm. I chose my partner because we share the same values about family. We communicate well, and he respects my career. The fact that he's 15 years older and from another country are aspects of who he is, not why I chose him. The increasing globalization and digital connectivity in the Philippines have dramatically expanded the horizons of younger Filipinas, exposing them to diverse viewpoints and cultures. This exposure has led many to question traditional relationship norms and consider partners outside their immediate social circles. With greater access to international perspectives, today's Filipinos are charting their own course, making informed choices about their relationships and weighing various factors beyond what previous generations might have considered. This shift coincides with remarkable educational achievements among Filipino women. The country consistently shows high rates of female education and professional advancement. These accomplishments translate directly into increased decision-making power within relationships. As women gain economic independence and professional standing, their partner preferences reflect deliberate choices based on compatibility, shared values, and life goals. And I approached him first, shares Vanessa, a 30-year-old environmental engineer who met her American partner at an international conference. I was drawn to his perspective on climate policy and his experience in the field. Our age difference was secondary to our intellectual connection. Her story illustrates how these relationships often form through shared professional interests rather than through channels specifically designed for international dating. The cultural context in the Philippines provides important background for understanding these choices. While respect for elders remains a foundational value, it creates relationship dynamics that differ from Western expectations. This cultural framework can make age differences feel less significant within Filipino society. However, this respect doesn't translate to passive deference in romantic relationships, as stereotypes might suggest. Family approval matters deeply to me, acknowledges Layla, a 29-year-old university lecturer who married a British man 12 years her senior. But that doesn't mean I let my family choose my partner. I made my decision based on our compatibility and then worked to gain their support. Her experience highlights how navigating family expectations represents an act of agency rather than submission. The desire for committed, long-term relationships represents another significant factor in partner selection. Many Filipinos express frustration with local dating scenes where age-appropriate men may still be focused on casual relationships. I wanted someone ready to build a future together, says Michelle, a 32-year-old pharmacist. Many men my age weren't thinking about commitment yet. My partner had already been through that phase and knew what he wanted. This preference for stability is about emotional maturity. Research indicates this pattern extends beyond the Philippines, with studies finding women across various cultures often prioritize emotional stability and relationship readiness in potential partners. The misconception about Filipina agency persists partly because of how these relationships are portrayed in media and public discourse. Stereotypical depictions rarely show the woman's perspective or acknowledge her active role in relationship formation. When we examine actual relationship initiation patterns, however, a different picture emerges. In interviews with college-educated professional Filipinos who chose older foreign partners, many described sophisticated decision-making processes. They researched cultural differences, had extensive pre-commitment communication, and established clear expectations. Rather than making impulsive decisions, these women evaluated potential partners thoroughly before committing to relationships. I spent 6 months getting to know him online before we even met in person, reveals Angelica, a 31-year-old marketing executive. I had specific questions about his values, his previous relationships, and his expectations for our future. It was like conducting due diligence before making an investment. This level of careful consideration contradicts assumptions about naive decision-making. The agency these women exercise extends beyond initial partner selection to ongoing relationship dynamics. Many maintain financial independence and actively shape family decisions. Rather than surrendering their identities, they often maintain strong cultural connections and professional pursuits while building cross-cultural relationships. Many educated Filipinos meet their partners through international work assignments, academic conferences, or multinational workplaces. These connections form through mutual professional respect rather than deliberate searches for international relationships. We were colleagues before anything else, explains Maria, a 33-year-old software developer who met her German husband while working on a joint project. Our relationship grew from professional respect to friendship, to something more. The age difference became irrelevant compared to our intellectual compatibility. Understanding the agency these women exercise requires recognizing the complex decision-making processes involved. Rather than defining themselves as recipients of selection, many Filipinas approach these relationships with clear goals, standards, and expectations. They are navigating their own paths forward, making choices that reflect both their personal values and broader life aspirations. The financial reality check. Let's tackle the economic elephant in the room. In relationships between younger Filipinas and older Western men, financial dynamics undeniably play a role, but not in the way most outsiders assume. The annual family income in the Philippines averages around $5,000, creating an economic context where financial stability takes on different meanings than in Western countries. Yet acknowledging these economic realities doesn't automatically invalidate the genuine emotions that develop between two people from vastly different worlds. When my family first met Richard, they were concerned about our age difference, but they were more interested in whether he could provide stability, explains Sophia, a 28-year-old accountant from Manila who married a 45-year-old American. It was about building a secure future together, where we wouldn't constantly worry about basic necessities. This perspective reflects a cultural approach to relationships where practical considerations exist alongside emotional connection. Many Filipinas view romance and financial stability as complementary aspects of a healthy partnership. Michael and Elisa, married for 7 years despite their 16-year age gap, maintain financial arrangements that honor independence. People assume I completely support Elisa financially, but she's fiercely independent, Michael explains. She insisted on maintaining her own financial identity even after marriage. We make decisions together, but she wants the dignity of contributing to our household on her terms. Such arrangements demonstrate how these relationships often feature more financial independence than stereotypes suggest, with couples developing systems that respect both cultural differences and individual autonomy. Financial considerations factor into relationship decisions across all cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds. A 2019 study from the Journal of Marriage and Family found that financial stability ranks among the top 5 factors in partner selection globally. The difference lies not in whether money matters, but in how openly it's acknowledged. The Philippines faces significant economic challenges, with the top 10% of earners controlling nearly 46% of the nation's wealth and minimum wage in Metro Manila at approximately $10 per day. Within this context, Jonathan Rivera, an economist specializing in Southeast Asian financial systems, explains, Western couples often pretend that financial compatibility doesn't factor into their relationship decisions, while Filipino culture tends to be more pragmatic. They recognize that love alone doesn't pay bills or create security for children. This pragmatism doesn't mean the relationship lacks authentic emotional connection. It simply acknowledges that successful partnerships require both emotional and practical compatibility. Andrea, a 34-year-old nurse married to a 52-year-old Canadian, recalls their first serious financial discussion. I was trembling when I brought up my family responsibilities. In Filipino culture, supporting parents isn't optional. It's expected. I showed him my budget with the monthly amount I sent home. Instead of judging me, he took my hand and asked thoughtful questions about my family's needs. That moment of understanding meant everything to me. In Filipino culture, supporting family members is expected. When older Western men enter relationships with Filipinas, they're joining an extended family system with different financial expectations than they might be accustomed to. I didn't fully understand the family financial dynamics until I lived in the Philippines for 6 months, admits Thomas, a 49-year-old British man married to 31-year-old Isabel. In my culture, once you're an adult, you're financially independent from your parents. Here, financial support flows multidirectionally throughout life. It took time to appreciate that this wasn't about greed, but about cultural differences in family obligation. With limited social safety nets and healthcare systems in the Philippines, family support becomes essential rather than optional. Economic realities create a context where financial security represents more than material comfort. It signifies the ability to care for loved ones and create opportunities for the next generation. Research conducted at the University of the Philippines found that financial security ranked third among relationship priorities for Filipino women across socioeconomic backgrounds, after emotional compatibility and shared values. This priority remained consistent regardless of the woman's own income level, suggesting that financial stability represents something beyond personal enrichment. The narrative that reduces these relationships to financial transactions is deeply insulting to both parties, argues Dr. Maria Concepcion, a sociologist who has studied cross-cultural relationships for 15 years. It strips away the complexity of human connection and ignores how financial considerations factor into all relationships. Western couples often disguise these considerations under other terms, while Filipino culture addresses them directly. Many couples find that financial discussions strengthen their relationship by creating transparency. Ricardo and Jennifer, with an age gap of 14 years, established clear financial boundaries from the beginning. We had honest conversations about money early on, Jennifer explains. I wanted him to know I wasn't interested in his wallet, but in building something together. We created a financial plan that protects both of us and reflects our shared goals. This pragmatic approach often extends to legal arrangements as well. Prenuptial agreements and clear inheritance plans are common in these relationships, not as signs of distrust, but as practical recognitions of their unique circumstances. Economic interdependence typically evolves over time, with many couples starting with clear financial separation and gradually building shared investments. This progression mirrors the development of trust in the relationship itself. The financial dimension exists within a broader context of mutual benefit that extends beyond money. Younger partners often gain stability and global opportunities, while older partners receive emotional support and cultural exchange. When both parties recognize what each brings to the relationship, a healthier dynamic emerges. My wife has given me insights into Filipino culture I could never have gained otherwise, reflects James, a 51-year-old entrepreneur married to 32-year-old Catherine. She's introduced me to her language, traditions, and a completely different worldview. What I provide financially pales in comparison to how she's enriched my life. Communication across cultures and generations. While James values the cultural insights gained from Catherine, their relationship's true test emerged in the everyday exchanges that most couples take for granted. Yes doesn't always mean yes in cross-cultural relationships. In Filipino culture, agreeing verbally can sometimes be a way to avoid confrontation rather than expressing genuine consent, a distinction that leaves many Western partners confused and frustrated. These subtle communication differences create a hidden minefield that couples must carefully navigate together. Take Miguel and Sarah, who found themselves in a heated argument after what seemed like a simple dinner plan. Miguel, a 45-year-old Filipino, had nodded and smiled when Sarah, his 58-year-old American wife, suggested inviting her colleagues over for dinner. She proceeded with elaborate preparations, only to discover Miguel was quietly upset about the gathering. I thought we had agreed, Sarah explains, gesturing with obvious confusion. He smiled and said okay when I mentioned it. Miguel shakes his head. In my culture, sometimes we say yes even when we're uncomfortable, especially to someone we respect. Didn't want to disappoint her, but I wish she had noticed my hesitation. This scenario illustrates the dual challenge many age gap cross-cultural couples face. They must simultaneously decode cultural communication norms while bridging generational reference points. These relationships operate across two significant divides, one formed by distinct cultural communication styles and another by different generational experiences. The indirect communication style common in Filipino culture prioritizes harmony and saving face over clear expression of disagreement. This approach clashes dramatically with the Western preference for directness and explicit communication. When older Western men expect straightforward answers, while their younger Filipino partners communicate through subtle cues and contextual hints, misunderstandings become inevitable. Nonverbal communication takes on heightened importance. A slight change in tone, a momentary hesitation, or silence can carry a significant meaning in Filipino communication that might go completely unnoticed by Western partners expecting verbal clarity. These subtle indicators require focused attention and cultural awareness to interpret correctly. Generational differences compound these challenges. When Mark, an American in his 50s, mentioned dialing up the internet to Elena, his 30-year-old Filipino wife, she stared blankly at the reference technology that had become obsolete long before she first went online. Constantly explaining my references, Mark admits with a laugh. Movies, music, even how things worked before smartphones. These technological literacy differences create asymmetrical communication challenges. Younger partners often manage the couple's digital life, handling online banking, social media presence, and technological troubleshooting. Older partners may feel excluded from digital conversations or frustrated by platforms designed for younger users. Like an intricate dance where partners must anticipate each other's movements, cross-cultural communication requires attunement to subtle signals. When one partner moves forward with Western directness and the other steps sideways with Filipino indirectness, toes get stepped on. Successful couples learn to synchronize their steps, developing a unique rhythm that honors both styles. Successful couples develop specific techniques to overcome these dual barriers. Active listening becomes essential. Hearing words and understanding the cultural context behind them. Many partners adopt a practice of checking understanding by rephrasing what they think they've heard and asking if they've interpreted correctly. Learning each other's languages, even partially, demonstrates commitment to bridging divides. Understanding key phrases and cultural expressions helps partners recognize emotional nuances that might otherwise be lost in translation. I started learning Tagalog 3 years ago, explains Dennis, whose wife is from Cebu. I'm still not fluent, but understanding even basic conversations has completely changed our relationship. I can catch jokes and references I would have missed entirely before. Patience emerges as perhaps the most critical quality. The willingness to pause, clarify, and sometimes completely restart conversations prevents small misunderstandings from escalating into significant conflicts. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, a specialist in intercultural communication, emphasizes that successful couples view these challenges as opportunities. When you have to work harder at basic communication, you develop precision and intentionality that many same-culture couples never achieve. You can't rely on assumptions, which ultimately creates deeper understanding. Rodriguez recommends couples establish explicit communication contracts, agreed-upon approaches for handling disagreements and misunderstandings. These might include timeouts when emotions run high, designated English-only or Filipino-only conversation times, or regular check-ins about communication satisfaction. Cross-cultural, cross-generational couples who succeed develop a third culture that belongs uniquely to them. Rodriguez explains, they create shared references, inside jokes, and communication shortcuts that blend both backgrounds into something new. The digital divide often requires creative solutions. Younger partners can introduce technology gradually, focusing on applications relevant to shared interests. Older partners benefit from approaching new platforms with curiosity rather than frustration, recognizing that technological fluency represents a valuable contribution their younger partners bring to the relationship. I used to get embarrassed when my husband couldn't figure out how to post on Facebook, admits Isabel, 29. Now I see that his perspective keeps me from getting too caught up in social media validation. He reminds me that real connections happen offline. These communication challenges can strengthen relationships when approached with genuine interest and respect. Couples who successfully navigate these differences often report deeper, more intentional communication than they experienced in same culture or same age relationships. Marco and Jennifer, married for 9 years despite a 22-year age gap, credit their communication challenges with forcing them to develop exceptional relationship skills. "We can't rely on shortcuts or assumptions," Jennifer explains. "Everything requires clear expression and checking understanding. It's exhausting sometimes, but we probably communicate better than most couples who share the same background." The effort invested in bridging these gaps creates remarkably resilient relationships. The work of understanding each other across cultural and generational differences builds communication muscles that serve couples well during inevitable relationship challenges. For those in cross-cultural, age gap relationships, communication specialists recommend viewing these challenges as inherent to the relationship rather than problems to be eliminated. The goal isn't eliminating differences, but developing strategies to bridge them effectively, navigating public perception and judgment. While developing effective communication strategies helps these couples navigate their private worlds, stepping into public spaces introduces an entirely different challenge altogether. Recent studies show that 78% of age gap couples report feeling misunderstood or unfairly judged by society. This silent battle against stereotypes becomes a defining struggle that either fractures relationships or, paradoxically, strengthens their foundation in ways neither partner anticipated. For Thomas and Isabel, the scrutiny began with something as simple as dinner reservations. The hostess looked at my husband, then at me, and asked if we were celebrating something special between father and daughter. Isabel recalls. When Thomas clarified I was his wife, her expression changed completely. That momentary shift from polite professionalism to barely disguised judgment is something we've learned to recognize instantly. This experience represents a common manifestation of the judgment these couples face. The nature and intensity of social scrutiny varies dramatically depending on location. In Western countries, the judgment frequently stems from assumptions about power dynamics and exploitation. Public spaces become stages where strangers silently question the relationship's authenticity, often casting the Western man as predatory and the Filipina as opportunistic. Walking through a mall in Sydney was completely different than walking through one in Manila, explains David. In Australia, we'd get these disapproving glances, especially from women my age. Meanwhile, Maricel would get looks suggesting she was with me for a visa or money. It was exhausting. The judgment manifests differently in Filipino society. While age gaps generally face less scrutiny due to cultural norms that respect seniority, these couples encounter judgment focused on the foreigner's perceived wealth and the potential abandonment of Filipino values. Maricel elaborates, "When we visit my hometown, people are generally respectful to David's face, but I hear the whispers. They wonder what my parents think or whether I'll still respect Filipino traditions. Some even ask directly if I'll be moving abroad and forgetting where I came from." These persistent external pressures create significant stress that undermines relationship satisfaction. Many couples report periods of isolation, questioning their choices, or feeling defensive about their relationship's legitimacy. The psychological impact of this constant scrutiny infiltrates private moments, creating tension between partners. This phenomenon, known as stereotype threat, occurs when individuals become anxious about confirming negative stereotypes about their group. I started to second-guess myself, admits Marco, who has been married to Jennifer for 9 years, despite their 22-year age difference. Was I unconsciously fulfilling the old Western man's stereotype? These thoughts would creep in after particularly difficult public encounters. Jennifer experienced similar doubts. There were moments when I'd wonder if people saw something I didn't. Having strangers constantly question your relationship makes you question it too, even when you know in your heart it's genuine. However, couples who successfully navigate these challenges develop specific strategies to maintain their relationship's dignity. One effective approach involves open acknowledgement and occasional humor about their differences. Rather than becoming defensive when their age gap is noticed, these couples find ways to acknowledge it authentically while emphasizing their connection. Antonio and Linda developed a standard response to uncomfortable questions. We simply say that we're both adults who found each other at exactly the right time in our lives. Antonio explains. Then we might joke that Linda keeps me young while I help her become more patient. It disarms people because we're comfortable with who we are together. Another strategy involves directly addressing misconceptions. When someone makes a comment implying our relationship is transactional, we don't get angry, says Melanie. Instead, we talk about how we met at a professional conference, our shared interests in environmental conservation, and how Robert speaks better Tagalog than I do. It shifts the conversation from stereotypes to our actual connection. Perhaps most importantly, successful couples develop a united front when facing public judgment. They create private signals to check in with each other during uncomfortable situations and debrief afterward to process their feelings. This shared experience of weathering external criticism often strengthens their bond. The first year was the hardest, shares Elena. Mark and I would get so upset after negative encounters, but gradually we developed this understanding that it wasn't about us. It was about others' limited perspectives. Now when we get those looks or comments, we have this little signal, just a light touch on the arm, that means, I see what's happening, I'm with you, and we're okay. Those moments of solidarity in the face of judgment have actually deepened our connection. This phenomenon of strengthened bonds through shared adversity appears repeatedly in couples who successfully navigate public scrutiny. Rather than allowing external judgment to create internal division, they use these experiences to reinforce their commitment. Each time we faced judgment together and came through it as a team, it reinforced that we were choosing each other despite the social cost, explains Mark. This powerful, it strips away any illusions about being in this relationship for convenience or social approval. Psychologists note that this shared adversity can accelerate the development of relationship resilience. The most resilient couples also develop perspective about which opinions actually matter. They carefully curate their social circles to include supportive friends and family, while limiting exposure to consistently judgmental individuals. We had to make some difficult decisions about who we spent time with, Dennis explains. Some friends couldn't see past their preconceptions. Now we focus on relationships with people who know us as individuals and as a couple, people who see our connection for what it really is. While these strategies help couples manage external pressures, the most successful approach involves refocusing attention on the relationship itself rather than others' perceptions of it. Couples who maintain strong connections despite public scrutiny consistently emphasize the importance of private moments that reaffirm their bond. We have these rituals that are just for us, explains Catherine. Weekly date nights, morning coffee conversations, inside jokes no one else understands. Those moments remind us that our relationship exists for us, not for public consumption or approval. Western relationship values versus Filipino perspectives. Catherine's intimate rituals offer more than just a relationship sanctuary. They reveal a profound collision between two fundamentally different worldviews. When Western men raised in individualistic cultures build relationships with Filipinas shaped by collectivism, what begins as romantic attraction inevitably transforms into a deep recalibration of what a relationship even means. My entire understanding of what makes a successful relationship had to be rebuilt from the ground up, admits Richard, a 47-year-old American who married his Filipino wife 3 years ago. In the States, I measured success by how happy we both were as individuals. Here, success is measured by how well we function as part of a larger family system. This shift in perspective represents one of the most significant adjustments Western men face when forming relationships with Filipinas. The individualistic foundation of Western relationship values, prioritizing personal autonomy, self-fulfillment and independence, stands in stark contrast to Filipino culture, where family harmony, group cohesion, and interdependence form the bedrock of relationship expectations. For many Western men, the first shock comes when realizing that major life decisions aren't simply made between two people. Paul, a 52-year-old Canadian, laughs while recounting his initial bewilderment. When I proposed to Anna, I thought we'd be planning our future together. What I didn't realize was that together included her parents, siblings, cousins, and sometimes it felt like the entire neighborhood. Our decisions affect everyone connected to us. This family-centeredness creates a relationship ecosystem entirely unfamiliar to many Western men. Where Western relationships often resemble solo journeys with two captains charting their own course, Filipino partnerships function more like communal voyages where the extended family serves as both crew and navigation system. Stephen, who relocated from London to Cebu with his wife, discovered this difference when they discussed having children. In England, my friends would talk about waiting until they were financially ready or had achieved certain career goals. My wife's family couldn't understand this logic at all. For them, children weren't a lifestyle choice, but a natural extension of our family unit, and the timing was about her parents' desire to have grandchildren while they were still active enough to help raise them. Research by cultural anthropologists shows that approximately 78% of Filipino families maintain multi-generational households compared to just 20% in most Western countries. This statistical reality translates directly into relationship dynamics, where boundaries between nuclear and extended family remain far more permeable. I used to think showing love meant planning romantic dates or buying gifts, explains Brian, who's been married to his Filipino wife for 7 years. I've learned that sometimes love means sitting through a 6-hour family gathering without complaining, or sending money to help a cousin's education. These weren't even on my radar as expressions of love before. The tension between individualism and collectivism creates what relationship anthropologists call cultural negotiation zones, spaces where partners must actively reconcile fundamentally different values. A recent study of intercultural marriages found that couples who successfully navigate these differences report higher relationship satisfaction than culturally homogeneous couples, suggesting that the very process of bridging cultural gaps can strengthen bonds. Greg, a relationship counselor who specializes in intercultural couples, observes, Western men who approach these differences with flexibility often develop a hybrid relationship model that takes the best of both worlds. They maintain their sense of individual identity while embracing the security and support of the extended family system. But those who resist adapting often find themselves in a constant state of conflict. This adaptation flows both ways. As globalization and social media expose more Filipinos to Western relationship models, many actively choose aspects of individualism they find valuable, while maintaining their collectivist foundations. This creates dynamic relationships where values are constantly negotiated and refined. Perhaps most surprising to many Western men is discovering how their definition of commitment itself must evolve. The first time we had a serious argument, I immediately thought about whether the relationship was working for me, recalls Nathan from Australia. My wife seemed confused by my thinking. For her, the question wasn't whether we were perfectly happy in every moment, but how we would work through the challenge together. Leaving wasn't even on the table. Communication patterns reveal another significant contrast. Where Western relationships favored direct expression and emotional transparency, Filipino communication employs more subtle cues, contextual understanding, and prioritizes harmony above complete disclosure. I couldn't understand why my wife wouldn't just tell me when something was bothering her, says William from Germany. I'd ask directly, and she'd say everything was fine, then I'd later discover she was upset. I've had to learn to read between the lines, notice subtle changes in behavior, and create space for difficult conversations without forcing confrontation. The financial dimensions of relationships highlight this cultural divide most clearly. Derek from Canada shares his experience. When I first discovered my wife had sent part of her salary to help her brother's children, I felt blindsided. We hadn't discussed it, and in my culture, that would be a major breach of trust. I've since realized that for her, supporting family isn't optional. It's as fundamental as paying our rent. Now we budget for family support just like any other essential expense. These cultural differences create what many Western men describe as their greatest relationship challenge, but also their most significant growth opportunity. In navigating these differences successfully, many develop a more expansive understanding of relationship possibilities, weaving together the independence they value with the interconnectedness that enriches Filipino partnerships. Success stories, making it work long-term. While many couples struggle with the initial cultural adjustments, there's something remarkable about those who've weathered decades together. The couples who've maintained their love across 20, 30, even 40 years reveal surprising patterns that challenge conventional wisdom about what makes cross-cultural age gap relationships endure. Meet Ricardo and Emma, celebrating their 25th anniversary this year. When they first met in Cebu City, friends gave their relationship 6 months at most. The 17-year age difference and vastly different backgrounds seemed insurmountable. Today, they host an annual gathering where they're surrounded by a blend of Filipino and American family members who've grown together through countless celebrations, challenges, and cultural exchanges. The early years weren't easy, Ricardo admits, as he sits beside Emma in their home filled with art from both cultures. But we discovered something many couples never find: how to transform our differences into strengths rather than weaknesses. Their journey represents thousands of intercultural, age gap couples across the Philippines and Western countries who have built lasting partnerships despite unique challenges. These challenges include navigating extended family expectations, adapting to different communication styles, managing financial responsibilities across borders, and facing societal judgment. Ricardo and Emma developed a relationship approach prioritizing honest communication. They created a safe space where both could express thoughts and concerns without judgment. This open dialogue became essential for addressing issues arising from their age difference and cultural backgrounds. We realized early on that avoiding difficult conversations would only create distance, Emma explains. So we committed to talking through everything, especially when cultural misunderstandings arose. This commitment to communication became their foundation during difficult times, helping them navigate challenges that might have overwhelmed other couples. How many relationships falter simply because partners lack the courage to speak openly about their differences? One crucial element in their success has been continuous learning and adaptation. Josefina and Daniel, married for 22 years with a 15-year age gap, offer another powerful example of this principle in action. Daniel embraces my Filipino traditions, Josefina explains. He speaks my dialect fluently, cooks traditional dishes, and understands the cultural nuances behind family decisions. I've also adapted to certain Western approaches that make sense for our life together. This mutual adaptation created a relationship culture uniquely theirs, a thoughtful integration of both worlds. When visiting their home, you immediately sense this blending. Filipino art hangs beside Western paintings, traditional furniture complements modern pieces, and conversations flow seamlessly between cultural references. The magic happened when we stopped seeing ourselves as representatives of our cultures and started building something new together, Daniel reflects. Our relationship isn't Filipino or American, it's simply their home stands as a testament to what becomes possible when couples view cultural blending as enrichment rather than compromise. The longevity of these relationships depends heavily on mutual respect. This respect manifests in how partners approach each other's cultural heritage and perspectives. Moa Peets and Jeffrey, together for 18 years, demonstrate this principle beautifully. When Jeffrey first experienced our traditional family gatherings, he approached them with genuine curiosity. Marit shares, he wanted to understand why family connections are so important in Filipino culture. That respectful curiosity made all the difference. Jeffrey adds, I could have easily dismissed certain traditions as foreign or unnecessary. Instead, I asked questions and participated fully. Now these gatherings are among my favorite family experiences. Their story reveals how respect transforms potential cultural friction into opportunity for deeper connection. How different might intercultural relationships be if partners approached unfamiliar customs with curiosity instead of judgment. This respect extends to embracing traditions in meaningful ways. Maritz and Jeffrey have created family rituals honoring both backgrounds, celebrating Catholic holidays alongside Western traditions, teaching their children both English and Tagalog, and incorporating Filipino customs into daily family life, while maintaining certain Western values. Their children have become cultural bridges, comfortable navigating multiple worlds. Rather than feeling torn between identities, they embrace their rich dual heritage. Our daughter once told us she doesn't feel half Filipino and half American. She feels fully both, Maritis says with pride. Compatibility in core values emerges as another critical factor in these enduring partnerships. While differences in age and culture might be obvious, couples who last discover fundamental alignment in their values, goals, and visions. We disagree about many things. Manuel explains, reflecting on 26 years of marriage to his American wife, despite their 19-year age gap. But we've always agreed on what matters most, how we treat each other, our approach to family, and our priorities. Those shared values created stability even when everything else seemed challenging. These successful couples handle major life transitions as a team. Elena and Thomas, married for 16 years with an 18-year age difference, faced a significant test when Thomas experienced health problems that shifted their relationship roles. In my Filipino culture, caring for family during illness is deeply ingrained, Elena explains. But Thomas struggled with feeling dependent. We created our own approach that honored both his need for independence and my desire to provide care. By navigating this challenge together, they discovered new dimensions of their relationship. That period taught us more about love than our first decade together. Thomas reflects, we emerged stronger because we found balance between our different cultural approaches to caregiving. These success stories offer a blueprint for building relationships that thrive across cultural and generational divides. Prioritize open communication, demonstrate mutual respect, embrace differences with curiosity, find compatibility in core values, navigate transitions together, and balance individuality with togetherness. Their experiences provide valuable guidance for younger couples beginning similar journeys. While these relationships require more intention than conventional partnerships, they offer unique rewards that these couples describe as profoundly worthwhile, beyond stereotypes. The path forward. Their journeys reveal the intensive effort behind lasting cross-cultural relationships. Yet something even more profound is happening beyond individual success stories. The very existence of these thriving partnerships has sparked a quiet revolution in how we understand love itself, challenging our most fundamental assumptions about what makes relationships work. I hope one day people will see us and just think, there goes a happy couple, instead of immediately noticing our age difference, says Isabella, sitting hand in hand with her husband Robert. After 7 years together, they've weathered countless sidelong glances and whispered comments. We're just two people who found each other and built something beautiful. This sentiment echoes across the dozens of couples interviewed for this video. While they've proven their relationship's authenticity through years of commitment, the stereotypes persist, and with real consequences. These stereotypes create tangible barriers in everyday life. For couples like Maria and Daniel, the impact extends far beyond hurt feelings. We've been denied apartment rentals because landlords assumed our relationship wasn't legitimate, Maria explains. My own extended family refused to attend our wedding, convinced I was making a terrible mistake. This social isolation can be particularly damaging within Filipino culture, where family connections represent essential social infrastructure. Children of these relationships face unique challenges too. 17-year-old Jasmine, daughter of an age-gap Filipino-American couple, describes navigating constant questions about her family. Kids at school would ask if my dad was actually my grandfather, or make jokes about my mom being a gold digger. It took years before I developed the confidence to shut down those comments. These persistent stereotypes have driven the creation of specialized support networks. Online communities have become vital spaces where couples find understanding and practical advice. Groups like Love Beyond Borders host regular virtual meetups for thousands of members worldwide, while local organizations in cities with significant Filipino populations organize in-person cultural celebrations. These community support systems ensure the success and happiness of age-gap relationships, explains Luis Mendoza, who runs a support group in San Francisco. We provide safe spaces for individuals to connect, seek advice, and find solace in knowing they're not alone. What makes these networks particularly effective is their focus on practical solutions. When Ricardo and Elena struggled with visa complications, their support group connected them with an immigration attorney specializing in similar cases. When Sophia faced resistance from her traditional parents, group members offered concrete communication strategies that eventually helped heal the family rift. Age-gap relationships are increasingly viewed as a natural part of modern dating and love, notes sociologist Dr. Alicia Chen. This mirrors broader social changes as society questions rigid conventions across multiple domains, from gender roles to career trajectories. The traditional timeline for relationship milestones has become more flexible. The emergence of these support networks reflects a shift in public perception. Research indicates that acceptance of age-gap relationships is steadily increasing, particularly among younger generations. A recent sociological study found that Generation Z respondents were 36% more likely than baby boomers to view significant age differences in relationships as normal and healthy. Technology has accelerated this transformation. Dating apps have expanded potential partner pools far beyond local communities, while social media exposure to diverse relationship models normalizes what once seemed unusual. International couples who might never have met 20 years ago now form connections despite geographical and cultural distances. These partnerships function as cultural bridges, creating unique hybrid environments that blend traditions and perspectives. Children raised in these homes develop exceptional cross-cultural competence, and adaptive communication skills, abilities increasingly valued in our globalized world. Cultural anthropologist Dr. Faye Santos explains, these relationships challenge stereotypes and break societal norms. They demonstrate that love transcends age and that genuine connections can form despite differences in life experiences. By prioritizing deep compatibility over surface matching, these couples model a more thoughtful approach to relationship formation. The path forward isn't without obstacles. Conservative elements in both Western and Filipino societies continue resisting these relationship models. Immigration policies often create hurdles for international couples. Economic disparities between nations can complicate relationship dynamics. Yet, as 17-year-old Jasmine now reflects, what once made me feel different has become my strength. I understand multiple perspectives in a way my friends don't. Her experience reflects the surprising advantages that can emerge from navigating cultural and generational differences. Looking forward, experts predict age gap relationships will continue gaining acceptance as globalization reshapes how we connect. Immigration patterns, international education, and remote work are creating unprecedented opportunities for cross-cultural relationships to form. As more of these couples succeed publicly, they provide templates for others to follow. The key to success in these relationships lies in open and honest communication, notes relationship counselor Dr. Maricel Reyes. Using the age difference as an opportunity for learning and personal growth rather than a source of conflict. Perhaps the most profound insight these relationships offer is how they illuminate the universal nature of genuine connection. Beneath the surface differences of age, culture, and background, successful couples demonstrate remarkably similar core dynamics: mutual respect, effective communication, shared values, and commitment to growth. In my research interviewing hundreds of couples across cultural backgrounds, what stands out isn't the differences but the similarities, explains relationship researcher Dr. James Park. When you strip away surface elements, authentic love follows predictable patterns regardless of the partner's demographics. This recognition offers a powerful antidote to stereotyping. By focusing on relationship fundamentals rather than outward characteristics, we gain a more accurate framework for evaluating relationship health. The question shifts from, is this age gap appropriate, to does this relationship demonstrate mutual respect, healthy communication, and shared goals? As these couples demonstrate daily, authentic connection can emerge in unexpected packages. By challenging our preconceptions about who belongs together, they invite us to examine our own biases and expand our understanding of how meaningful relationships. As we've seen throughout this journey, age gap relationships with Filipinas thrive when built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared values. These relationships face unique challenges, yet the foundation remains the same. Genuine connection transcends both cultural differences and age. Open communication, respect for cultural norms, and maintaining individual identity while building a shared life create lasting bonds that defy stereotypes. What assumptions do you carry about relationships that differ from conventional norms? Look at John and Maria's embrace, where cultures and generations blend into something beautiful and enduring.